Hi, Abby. Nice to see you. So, I thought it would be really useful if we could sit down together and talk about some of the commonly asked questions that we get from our clients. So, I don't know about you, but if somebody comes to see me for the first time, it's obviously a really difficult time for them. They're either considering starting a divorce or they've been told by their spouse that they want a divorce, and often they really want to know, you know, what are they going to get? What are they entitled to financially, and what is their life going to look like after this process? I mean, do you also get asked that question?
That is the number one question that I get from people when they first come in.
So, what do you say to them when they ask you that question?
It's a really hard one because you don't want to just go straight in with, well, it depends. But ultimately, that is the answer because it's going to depend on what the assets are, what everything's worth. And ultimately, I want to know what they want from it as well. So I try and find that out first of all. So, what do they see as their future potentially? Not that it means we're going to get that necessarily, but at least we all then know what we're working towards. So, the first thing we have to look at is, as I said, what everything is worth. So, what assets have they got?
Mhm.
Who owns the house? Whose name is it in? Is there a mortgage on it? Do they have any savings? Do they have any debts? Are there cars? Are there significant outgoings? Is there artwork hanging on their walls that's worth a lot? Anything like that. We really try and get into as much detail as they've got. And often, I don't know about you, they don't have all of that
Yeah,
information.
often they don't know, and you're often asking them questions that they don't know the answer to. So,
Yeah.
I mean, do you find that that makes them more anxious, or do you have a way around dealing with that?
I think it depends. If you get the sense from them that they have some information, then I say all the information you can give me is valuable. So just tell me what you know. And then anything else we can find out. So we can ask their partner, we can say, what have you got? Let's do this together. Let's work through it, come up with an asset schedule, work it all down. Or we can go through more formal processes if we have to. But some people know a lot, some people don't very, very much. And initially, it's just about finding where we are, seeing what there is, and then knowing kind of what we've got to get to be able to get there.
And I don't know about you, but I find that the very emotional asset is the family home. So do you tend to tailor your advice depending on whether somebody wants to stay in the family home or whether they've had enough and they want to sell and get rid? I mean, does that make a difference, do you think?
In terms of the advice, not really, because ultimately it's the legal principles that are going to decide what happens if we can't reach an agreement. So, in terms of what the outcome could be at court, then it doesn't impact the advice because I also try and think about what I would be advising their spouse. So, if
Yeah.
it wasn't them in front of me telling them I want to keep the house and all of this, if it was the spouse saying I want to sell, I've got to think about that. So, in terms of knowing what they want, that is so important though. Because if you find that if you don't have a clear idea of what the client wants, how you then approach things either with them or with negotiations can be really tricky.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and sometimes both parties want the same thing. So if you don't ask, and
Yeah.
you could well be working towards the same goal. But I think that's really interesting what you said about thinking what you would advise the other party, because I think that's really useful in terms of managing expectations as well.
Mm.
Because we obviously will do everything we can to get the best possible deal for our clients. But there's no point chasing something that's not achievable. And it's giving that realistic advice as well, isn't it, as to what is achievable?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes that can be really hard to hear. And it can make your client think that you're not necessarily looking out for their best interest. But the reality is that you are. Because, like you say, if you don't give them the advice that you would also be giving to their spouse, then their expectations might be unrealistic. And then they go into this process thinking it's going to be one way, and then the
Mm.
outcome comes out slightly differently. So, every client needs to make that informed choice. So they ultimately, if they reach an agreement, that's brilliant. And that's what we're hoping for. And we don't
Mhm.
want to have to end up with a judge making a
Yeah.
decision, but they need to be able to make that choice on an informed basis. So knowing what their legal rights are, knowing what our experience is of cases like theirs, and that looks at their side, looks at the other side, and then ultimately how we can work in a way that gets them what they would like to achieve in a way that allows them to move on and allows them to for that future and doesn't mean, burning everything to the ground
Yeah.
and causing animosity everywhere.
Thank you. I think that point you made at the end is really vital to the way that we work, in that, you have to try and make it as amicable as possible. And because, you know, life goes on at the end of the day, especially if there's children involved. That's really useful. Thank you for that, Abby.